A federal officer shot and killed a 37-year-old ICU nurse in broad daylight in Minneapolis. No battlefield, no court, no jury. Just a man between a government force and a woman who needed help. His name was Alex Pretti, a caregiver for veterans, a neighbor, a lawful citizen, killed by agents of the state in the name of law enforcement and immigration reform. Today, we don't ask whether ICE can kill him, but why ICE feels it must hide the truth of why and how they did. This is no longer a question of policy. It's a question of legitimacy. Is the Trump administration even considered legitimate anymore? If legitimacy survives only in silence and suppression, then what survives at all? Welcome back to Amani on Air. Only 2 weeks ago, ICE killed Renee Good, a white American mother of 3 children. And Kristi Noem sounds like a broken record because the statement that she gave in response to Alex's murder sounded almost identical to the one that she gave immediately in response to Renee Good, which, as you recall, took place without even any type of formal investigation or any details even emerging first. Here's what Kristi had to say.
Violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism.
Violence because of ideological differences. It seems like either Kristi has a very short memory or this Trump administration believes that ideological violence is selectively defined. We only just marked the 5-year anniversary of January 6th, when Trump basically sicked his supporters onto Capitol Hill, fully armed, and they attempted to overthrow the United States government because they didn't like the outcome of the elections. Trumpers obviously immediately uplifted the January 6th attempted coup as being heroic and patriotic. They even labeled Ashley Babbitt, the woman who attempted to literally break in despite multiple warnings from security guards, who was eventually shot and killed, as a woman who lost her life to American martyrdom. And yet somehow Alex Pretti, a literal nurse for war veterans working at a veteran hospital, who apparently was exercising his Second Amendment rights of carrying a weapon that was fully registered and didn't even reach for it, nor displayed any type of action that indicated that he was going to use it, he is being smeared by our government once again as being a domestic terrorist. To Kristi, apparently, there is no reason to show up to a protest with a firearm. That was the immediate disqualifier of Alex Pretti's humanity and of his Americanness, apparently. Yet again, does Kristi have short-term memory, or is this another form of manipulation from the Trump administration? Because, hello, Kyle Rittenhouse, the young man who showed up with an automatic weapon to a protest, fully intending on, quote-unquote, protecting his country from Americans that were exercising their free speech rights, Kyle Rittenhouse actually shot 3 people and killed 2 of them. And yet his charges were dropped, and he was celebrated by the Republican Party as being an American patriot and a Second Amendment hero. And to add fuel to the fire, Kyle Rittenhouse has been making tweets, taunting, making jokes about showing up in Minneapolis fully armed as well. I didn't see anyone from the Trump administration denounce that or discourage it, or anyone from the conservatives that are celebrating this ICE behavior at that. If anything, Kyle Rittenhouse is doing us a favor by painting a very clear picture of the Trump administration's hypocrisy of who is a real American, a true American patriot. And it seems like that definition is getting narrower and narrower. If the Trump administration is capable of smearing someone like Alex Pretti, a veteran nurse, as being a domestic terrorist, as being an enemy of the state, what are we doing here? Who else is left? Who else could possibly be safe from these smears? Because here's the thing, it seems like the Trump administration doesn't fear guns in crowds, it fears dissent in crowds. And with tens of thousands of people spontaneously pouring into the streets in Minneapolis to protest the admin and ICE and their unconstitutional immigration policies, they are losing the narrative. And Minneapolis is on the front lines of the American people waking up to what this administration is really made of. Now, on the Breakfast Club, Charlemagne said it in the clearest terms possible.
The Trump administration, how many people who serve this regime are going to continue to wipe their ass with the document that represents the supreme law of the United States? That document is the Constitution.
The Trump administration is wiping its with the Constitution. In fact, it seems like they're only invoking constitutional rights when it's convenient. Other than that, the entire document is up for grabs. Now, of course, wherever the administration is trying to manipulate the American public, J.D. Vance is always at the scene of the crime. He is front and center, and this time was no different. Here's what J.D. Vance had to say.
They so hate the idea of enforcing immigration laws that they're telling their people not to get sex offenders out of their community. It's crazy, and it's why we see so much chaos in Minneapolis, but not elsewhere.
J.D. Vance is trying to manipulate the public to support ICE by claiming that they're only going for the worst of society, the sex offenders. In fact, they even raided this home without a warrant and dragged a grandfather out in his underwear because they claimed that he was harboring sex offenders, aka people that he allegedly lived with, essentially claiming that ICE is the Gestapo. In what other context are crimes being used as an excuse to enter into Americans' homes without a warrant and to drag people out in handcuffs? ICE agents are literally like Trump's dogs that he has sent out to hunt and gather. But we see through this tactic very clearly, because what J.D. Vance and Trump and this entire administration is trying to do is to use immigration as a reason to consolidate power in a way that eventually is going to be used on Americans as a whole. If we compromise on this front, what in the world makes any American feel secure that that power won't be weaponized against them? If this administration is able to so easily lie through its teeth to smear the character of a veteran nurse, to completely manipulate the public in order to bend the rules, in order to literally rewrite and violate the Constitution in real time, in order to satisfy their political agenda, in what world does any trust between the government and the people still exist? And then here comes Carolyn Leavitt, the literal Christian blonde white woman face of this administration, blaming ICE's horrific behavior on the Democratic leaders of Minnesota.
But let's be clear about the circumstances which led to that moment on Saturday. This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota. For weeks, Governor Walz and the Mayor Jacob Frey and other elected Democrats were spreading lies about federal law enforcement officers who are risking their lives daily to remove the worst criminal illegal aliens from our streets: murderers, rapists, pedophiles, human traffickers, and gang members.
ICE agents are risking their lives? I'm sorry, did J.D. Vance not come out and say that they apparently have, in his eyes, absolute immunity before American law? Is it ICE agents that are being routinely murdered with complete impunity without so much as an investigation? How come until now we still don't even have an investigation into what happened with Alex Pretti? How come until now the officer that shot him point blank is still out on the field? How come we still don't even have a clear confirmed answer of how many bullets hit Alex Pretti? The government is literally committing extrajudicial executions of American citizens on American soil. without any consequences. And the worst mistake that the American public can do in this moment is to treat this as just a radical leftist issue. By the time the rest of the country wakes up to realize that we are all on the chopping block, it will have already been too late. The Trump administration has been making it clear that American rights have been conditional upon obedience to Trump and his ilk. And Trump lost his legitimacy a long time ago. Just look at Stephen Miller, his biggest tool in his war chest. Stephen Miller and his wife, by the way, he's not just a bad actor. He is literally a state function to carry out this horrific attack on the American people. And he should be treated as a traitor to his party and to the rest of the country. That man is so embarrassing that he's been incapable of publishing a tweet without it getting community noted. He typecast a veteran nurse as an assassin that tried to murder federal agents. This entire administration is trying to gaslight us into not believing our eyes. We've all seen the footage. We've all seen the multiple videos from multiple different angles. We know what happened. And the more that they spew these lies at us, the more that it chips away at the foundation of American leadership, and the more that we need to treat them as such. And it's just so sad to me because all Alex Pretti was trying to do was to save a woman that these cowards were pummeling on. They threw this poor woman to the ground. They were pepper spraying her. It was multiple huge, heavy, fully armed, militarized men against this one legal observer. And the fact that Alex Pretti got between them and her and was trying to help her up. He was trying to be who he was, which was somebody that was selfless, that cared about basic human life. And because of it, he paid the price with his own. As Hassan Piker said, it's literally the worst of Americans being allowed to murder the best of us. Those men are violent cowards that were rejected from society, literally the bottom of the barrel, that are now being armed with government weapons and hiding behind a badge, taking out the chip on their shoulders on the rest of their fellow Americans. And it needs to stop. Sound familiar? And my question to the Republican Party, to the conservatives that are supporting this, I thought that conservatives were all about limiting the power of the federal government, not expanding it. To this degree, we have never seen an expansion of this nature in a very long time. I thought that conservatives were all about protecting their Second Amendment rights to protect themselves from an overreaching government. So where exactly is the National Rifle Association in all of this? How come we haven't heard more conservatives come out in defense of Alex Pretti having a weapon, carrying a gun legally, as he was entitled to? And apparently that being used as an excuse to murder him in cold blood. I thought it was the conservatives that cared the most about the veterans of this country. And yeah, one of the people that literally cared for them, that provided medical relief for them, that took care of the veterans that have been rejected by our society and by our government itself. They're throwing him under the bus? Make it make sense, because it sure as hell doesn't to me. And here's the thing, what's happening in Minnesota is not an anomaly. Actually, we have seen this before and pretty recently. Take a look at this. Just to get an idea of how close in proximity these infamous instances of police brutality have been taking place. George Floyd was murdered just blocks away from both Renee Good and Alex Pretti. I was there in Minneapolis the day that the George Floyd verdict was read. I saw with my own eyes the way that the community came together to respond to the violence that has been inflicted upon them. These are everyday Americans that believe in the spirit of community, that believe in protecting their neighborhood, that believe in the equality of all human life, that understand that an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. And what's clear as day is that Minneapolis is the front lines of American democracy right now. The people that are fighting, that are literally putting their lives on the line to hold the line against ICE's violence and incitement, they are doing so on behalf of the entire American people. They are fighting for the soul of America itself, not only on behalf of the left, but also on behalf of the conservatives, actually especially so. And whoever still views what's going down as left versus right, instead of government power against a people's autonomy, please call it for what it is. You don't care about American democracy. You're just racist. And you want to support any policy that attacks, victimizes, ejects people of color from this country, even the ones that are here legally, because we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that literally thousands of people that have been impacted by this immigration policy are in this country legally, some of which even have not only American papers, but actual American citizenship that are being deported. You're so racist that you would allow the demise of our very country for your own ideology. And that ideological violence is the most dangerous. And it's impossible not to mention the fact that the TikTok sale finally went into effect officially on January 22nd. And almost instantaneously, almost humorously, in fact, so blatantly in front of our eyes, the entire platform went down for everybody in the States for hours after Alex Pretti's murder. And when it came back online, so many people were reporting that their ICE content was being completely censored. I can attest to this. We made a post on Muslim Girl's account about ICE that for the first time ever on our account, after an entire day of being up, got literally 0 views. Other TikTok account owners that have millions of followers have reported posting ICE content that also has gotten 0 views. Even the pro-genocide influencers that have been posting ICE content in support of ICE's policies, in support of ICE's behavior, have also gotten no views. Seems like Larry Ellison hasn't really understood how to work that algorithm yet. But it's clear what's happening, right? First they kill the body, then they kill the footage. Again, sound familiar? The same exact playbook has been playing out right before our eyes for the past 2.5 years of genocide in Palestine. And people are making the connection between Minnesota and Palestine yet again. They were making that connection back during the George Floyd days. Actually, Palestinians in Palestine were tweeting at Black Lives Matter activists, giving them tips of how to deal with the violence, of how to deal with the pepper spray. And sure enough, yet again, people are seeing, this time from their own eyes, the parallels between ICE's behavior and the IDF. Like, for example, detaining literal children. Like, for example, killing innocent civilians, blocking ambulances from reaching them, blocking any type of medical attention from reaching them as they bleed out. And then, after they're killed, smearing them with the label of terrorist. It's the exact playbook. And it's not a coincidence. ICE itself is trained by the IDF. Not only are they trained by the IDF, but ICE, an American agency, has a headquarters in Tel Aviv. And let's not forget, several weeks back when Elon Musk revealed the location of all of the accounts on X and exposed the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security's account, as being based out of Tel Aviv. None of this is a coincidence. And we can see through the example of Minnesota that it's become clear. Counterterrorism abroad becomes domestic policy right here at home. Like I said, this is no longer a question of policy. It's becoming a question of legitimacy. The Trump administration has completely eroded the social contract between the American government and the American people. It's killing American citizens without any cause. It's unleashing a lethal force upon the American public under the guise of law enforcement and immigration policy. It's smearing our own citizens, the dearest among us, as being domestic terrorists, as being enemies of the state. And it's telling all of us not to believe our eyes. Like Charlemagne said, they're literally wiping their ass with the Constitution. Now, on a final note, I just want to say that while we are all distracted by the headlines here at home, there is still a genocide that is ongoing, that's happening as we speak. And Francesca Albanese has drawn the public's attention to a very, very concerning and heartbreaking report that has come out that says, according to the most recent recorded figures, 2,700 families have been entirely wiped out in Gaza. Wiped out, entire family trees, leaving around 6,000 people as the sole survivors of their entire bloodlines. And as this indiscriminate extermination has taken place and continues to be in progress, Jared Kushner had the audacity of presenting at the World Economic Forum his real estate plan for all of these shiny buildings that they want to build on top of the corpses, on top of the still wet, blood-stained land that they are now trying to get investors for. And I just want to say that this is what it has always been about. It's simply been about land. It has never been about Hamas. It has never been about any type of noble cause. It hasn't even been about some type of historical claim to the land. It has simply been about land and profit. This is by and by a genocide. And it's happening right in front of our faces. And it just proves that we're dealing with an administration that is genuinely among the most evil forces on the planet right now. Just pure, concentrated evil. So that's how we trace the arc from a man's murder on a Minneapolis street to the deliberate obscuring of how and why it happened by the Trump administration. We see how narratives are shaped before facts can even breathe, how federal power moves in shadows, and how silence becomes the most telling witness. The question we must ask isn't simply why Alex Pretti was murdered, but why our government that claims to protect life will move mountains to protect its own story. If a government fears transparency more than the truth, then authority becomes a mask for violence, and obedience becomes the currency of legitimacy. Thanks for tuning in to Amani on Air. See you next week.